Well, for being the first Snap fan game, it's good. Everything's kind of rough, but it's good. But what the hell? That's it, I can't take this nonsense anymore. I'm out. Bye. If you're a Snap fan, you've probably heard of or seen this fan game where instead of animatronics, we have dolls or possessed mascots. And that's because Five Nights at Treasure Island is considered by many to be the first Snap fan game released back on December 1st, 2014. And honestly, for being such a simple game, it ends up becoming something complex. Not only because it evolved in mechanics over the years, but also because this game has different versions. It's not like the classic Snap games for cell phones, where there's an old version and a remastered one. No, here there are like 6 remastered versions of the same game, not counting the demos that were around before the game was officially released. The curious thing here is that from the 3rd to the 5th remaster, they were either cancelled or not finished, so we only have 4 complete versions. The original game, Remaster 1.0, Remaster 2.0, and Remaster 6.0, and even though we're mainly going to compare the original game with Remaster 6.0, we will talk a bit about the other remasters as well. But anyway, without further delay, let's see how that fan game went from being kind of shabby to something that would scare you to death just by looking at it. Alright, let's start with the basics. The menu, generally speaking, is the same, since in both you see photo negative Mickey. But now, in the remastered version, we have a series of options in the settings section, where one important one stands out: subtitles. Just like in any Snap fan game, we're going to receive calls during the nights, and subtitles obviously help us understand everything better. What are they saying? Alright, if we move on to the mechanics, we'll see that in the original, we only have one way to avoid the suits. This method consists of turning off a camera when one of them appears in our office. And we would already have several enemies, but the truth is that all of them are avoided in the same way. And while Snap is known for being somewhat monotonous, this fan game takes it to another level. And I want to point out a kind of error or bug that was there, which is that using the monitor wasn't programmed correctly, and if we kept the cursor on the monitor button, this would happen. Sometimes you can lower the camera without turning it off, but in the remastered version, this doesn't occur. And besides having the ability to turn off a camera, we can also turn off the office lights and hold our breath. This way, we have a bit more variety, and we'll do one thing or another depending on which suit comes. Also, now we have limited power, so we can't afford to just sit and watch the cameras, and don't even think about staying in the dark for too long. We can also see that in the remastered version, with the light mechanic, as the power runs out, we can see it start to flicker, and this can be a problem. Why? Because when an animatronic enters the office, the screen goes black for a few short seconds. However, that's enough to know there's an animatronic. Well, there's a suit inside and we can confuse the lights going out with a suit entering the office, or vice versa. So yeah, it's a bit more difficult. Also, I like that they added a kind of Mickey Mouse figure, and if we press its nose, it makes a characteristic sound. Something curious is that in Remaster 1.0 and 2.0, some of these mechanics could already be seen. With the difference being that if you turned off the light, you had to wait a while before it turned back on. On the other hand, you could also hide under the desk, which was necessary to avoid some suits. And with that said, we're pretty much done here, more or less. We can also notice how more cameras have been added to the remastered version, and how the minigame mechanics have also changed in Night 3 in the original version. We had to survive in the office, as always, until 3 AM. Suddenly, we would be taken to a minigame where we have to go to the pirate caverns. Here, our only mission is to survive until 6 AM, although we can also grab a tape that is inside a safe. Characters like the Face or Undyne will patrol the prison, so we have to run away from them when we see them. On Night 3 of the remastered version, we must complete the whole night before being taken to the minigame. The same characters are here, but now we have to shoot the Face with an arrow when we see him with the flashlight, and with Undyne, we have to hold our breath. Also, now we don't have to find a video home system tape, but instead we have to enter a room, so we'll need a key that's inside a drawer we've already found. Will we be able to get in? After this scene, we can continue with nights 4 and 5, where new characters will join in to attack us. But I'll be honest with you, nothing really important happens in the original version. Maybe we have the extras in night 6, but nothing else happens. There's no context, no more story, nothing. On the other hand, in the remastered version 6.0, which is the one we're watching after night 5, we have a cutscene where we're told that we have to stay longer, which leads us to the night 6, and we face Overglass, which is a combination of all the suits except for the face and Undyne. And it's both beautiful and terrifying to see it like this, since the remastered version 2.0 looked like this and wasn't scary at all. It just looked like a green man. And now, at each hour of the night 6, we will enter a minigame again, where we can enter a room with different sketches of Mickey Mouse. Finally, Mother appears.
She's here, my children.
This is how the game ends, showing the credits, along with images from the original game, and everything ends here, right? When we return to the menu, we'll have unlocked the custom night and classic mode. If we complete classic mode, we'll unlock characters for the custom night. And as we keep completing these challenges, more characters will be unlocked. And since we're on the subject, this video game wouldn't be the same without them. That's why we're going to go over each one, compare them to their original versions, and see how much they've changed. First, we have Photo Negative Mickey. He behaves the same as in his original version, since he appears from the very first night. Needless to say, he looks much better visually in the remastered version. Likewise, his classic version can be unlocked in custom night, and we can face him.
Do you want to see my son come?
We have Disembodied, who seems to be the head of Donald Duck. In his original version, he was just that, a head. However, in the remastered version, he looks melted and has some tentacles, kind of like Nightmare Marionette. Mechanically, it's pretty much the same, since he'll appear starting on night 2 and make a very annoying noise that will attract more suits. However, in the remastered version, he also serves the purpose of blocking part of our screen, making it impossible to see if any suit is in that spot. Oswald is a pay gamer and a cartoon rabbit, and honestly, he's not very scary in the original version, but in the remastered version, well, just look at him. He appears in both versions, starting from night 2, but originally he showed up at night as a black shadow. However, now you can distinguish him better, although he still tries to hide in the darkness. Acephalus is a headless Goofy. It's that simple in both versions. He starts appearing on night 3 and doesn't go through significant changes. Visually, maybe the color of his clothes changes a little. Mechanically, he is different, since in the remastered version, you need to hold your breath for him to go away.
Don't forget him.
In Purity, this terrifying Minnie Mouse appears for the first time in the remastered version 6.0 and shows up starting on night 3. There's no counterpart in the original version. While Photo Negative Minnie can be mentioned, remember they're different characters.
Why do I exist?
The face appears in Pirate Caverns in both versions, although it also shows up during the main nights. In the original, it appears from night 2, and in the remastered version from night 4, where turning off the light makes it leave. Visually, they are different, since it looks melted in the remastered version. Curiously, we can find it in the custom night, its original version, where we'll just have to raise and lower the camera to avoid it. Diane has had a radical change in his appearance. He's no longer a red humanoid, as if he were covered in blood. Now he wears a Mickey Mouse costume. In both versions, he appears in Pirate Caverns, although in the remastered version, he can appear from night 5 in the office. Hourglass becomes the final boss in the remastered version. In summary, he could be a deformed and demonic Mickey. All of this is because this is the combination of 5 suits, but they weren't just combined in the story, but also in terms of mechanics. That's why we'll need to know when to turn off a camera, hold our breath, or turn off the light to avoid him. On the other hand, in the original version, this seems to be a green person with a Mickey head without ears. And neither here nor in the remastered version 2.0 does he have a mechanic as such, he just appears as an Easter egg. Yes, I have it. Those are the main characters, as they attack us in the story. While we can't overlook the other extras in Custom Night, there's mascot Photonegative Mickey, who we must avoid by turning off the light. Pete. Periodically, he will cause a red indicator to appear on one of the cameras, which means we have to look at him so he doesn't attack us. This one is not in the original game, but he did appear for the first time in the 2.0 remaster. Will appear on the cameras, and we have to close the monitor to prevent him from going to his next phase and to keep him from attacking us. Interestingly, this is not his first appearance, since he was found in the 3.0 remaster Pete. Pete Sparky is also an enemy exclusive to the Custom Night. To avoid him, you have to turn off the lights. And no, this is not the first time he appears, since he was in the 5.0 remaster. There are 2 doors that we have to close. Of the remaining characters, they don't appear very often. We have Mother in first place, since she is the one we can see during the different cutscenes of Treasure Island. Mortimer can appear on any of the nights except for night 6. This one can attack us, but for that, there's a whole dynamic with this character, since it will turn everything monochromatic and make the other characters disappear, turning it into a 1 versus 1, where we'll need to turn off a camera or lights to keep it out of the office. We also have Forgotten One, who will appear randomly when we lower the monitor. If we see him, we have to raise the camera again, and that way we avoid him. Lastly, we have Pluto. He will only appear in the remastered version as an Easter egg. He can't attack us, like the original Pluto, who makes an annoying noise and draws more suits, but we can avoid this one by turning off a camera. Now, we could talk about their jump scares and even compare them, but I'll be honest, in the original version, let's just say the jump scares are not scary at all. In the remastered version, the jump scares are much better and can genuinely scare you. Whether it's the animation or the scream, the jump scares will definitely give you a good fright. Overall, the remastered version features many characters, yet it's odd that characters like Dios are still missing. Dios appeared in Treasure Island, at least since Remaster 1.0. Maybe the reason he doesn't appear is because of the change in the story. The original version doesn't really have a story. On the first 2 nights, we will receive calls, but the hardest one, strange, but Moyo very Ayapola, so the remaster gives it exactly.
Y 2.0 sería un mejor argumento. Por ejemplo, en la remasterización 1.0 seguimos con las mismas dos.
But it's not perfect. You see got it, or got in Spanish. Something to highlight is that on one screen it tells us, "They know what you did, my darkness, we will arrive." I managed to survive the 5 nights, but it's on the 5th night that God appears before us. He tells us that he's not here to hurt us, although he did cause the suits to come to life. He also tells us that all of this was part of an event that Jake was part of, and since Jake can't remember what he's referring to, he invites him to think back a long time ago. This leads us to the 6th night, or known here as Day 1, referring to the first day that Jake worked at that place. He doesn't face suits that came back to life, but rather suits with people inside, his coworkers, who want to play a prank on him. However, Jake won't let things stay that way and will take revenge himself. God speaks to us again, says it's our fault and that it's time for us to face the consequences, but it also seems to indicate that if we survive this night, he will let us go. And the remaster 2.0, even though it may have some changes, like new calls, the truth is that the story still follows the same path. On this side, there aren't many changes, although there is an alternate ending where Jake dies and no one else is killed. In the remastered and final story, Greg gives Jake, that is, the protagonist, the opportunity to go to Treasure Island to get information. Jake, for some strange reason, accepts and ventures to survive the different nights. During them, he receives calls from Greg, Lisa, and Henry, who also wants to be part of the investigation team. However, Henry tells us that he is trapped in pirate caverns, so we venture there. However, when we manage to get in, we don't find him. Instead, we see a lot of papers and phrases like "they're lying" and "don't listen." Jake seems to leave from there and face the costumes again on the 4th and 5th night. And it's when the last one ends that he receives a message, again from Greg, who tells him that he has to stay 1 more night. On night 6, some of the costumes have merged to attack us together. Interestingly, Henry calls us again to tell us that he's very close to finding what they came looking for, but he tells us that we have to go. A room where you have to enter a code that he gives us himself. Jake, being very obedient, goes to the place where he finds drawings and sketches of Mickey, but he also encounters a strange being. As we can see, the original game doesn't have a concrete story as such. However, over time and with remasters, it was given one. Still, this story changed for the final version of the video game. We went from a main character who was a killer paying for his crimes to Jake, who had the misfortune of being caught in a Treasure Island investigation and suffered after 5 nights there. Throughout this comparison, we can see how Snathing or 5 Nights at Treasure Island went from being a rather shabby game to becoming a true SNAF fan game. We can't deny that since the first demo, this video game can actually scare you. Maybe it's because of the atmosphere, maybe because of the characters' dialogues, or maybe because the characters themselves are actually a bit terrifying. But all of that was taken to the next level in the final remaster, Remaster 6.0, where it was improved. The jump scares, the office, the graphics, the characters, among many other things. I also like how this remastered version gives you the opportunity to play the original video game. But it's not just for show. With its help, you can unlock classic characters for custom night and some new ones as well. And I really like this option because it reminds us of its roots, of how Treasure Island started. even though several attempts at remastering couldn't be completed, and for one reason or another, they were cancelled. I believe the Radiance team's effort to improve this saga was worthwhile, adjusting the story to avoid cliches, not just people being killed, but people seeking revenge by possessing suits. Without a doubt, this video game takes
recursos más demoníacos o inspiraciones religiosas,
such as the use of God or Mother as the main antagonists, which gives it that touch of mystery that characterizes this saga, since the suits didn't come to life because of things like remnants or hatred, but rather a being that is not from this world had to help them so they could come to life. The original version laid the foundation for something small to become something bigger over the years, leading to this definitive version of Treasure Island.
¿Quieres sentir el verdadero terror o eres muy fan de FNAF? Este videojuego no te va a decepcionar.